Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating it's Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. In both the Lynn life and the Jamie body mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many search for truth rules already given to the search for truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And again, the reason that we state that requirement many times a day, but particularly on camera, is because if we don't do that, we aren't doing our parts, and souls do what they do, and larger eyes are watching, and sometimes we forget that larger eyes are watching, and that's a bad thing to forget.
Yup.
And pretending that because karma is delayed it doesn't exist, that's a bad confusion. We have some guardian angel types that are here, and it's like a chorus of guardian angels, and they want to talk about what happened when the deadline came and went.
That's right.
On 2020-0202, the deadline came and went, and there's still not a divine plan for Ground Zero Planet Earth, and they want to explain what that means, because the divine plans are woven from the individual soul plans of all the participants to create, the goal is a world that works for all, and they're wanting to settle for the best possible options.
Yeah, that's
Take
right.
the situation as it exists right now, however it exists, and weave together the soul plans to create the best possible outcome. And a divine plan, in order to be divine, must have levels of backup, because things aren't going to happen the way we want. Things will happen, and then that person will arrive late at the meeting, and they won't meet that other person, and so that crucial thing isn't going to happen. And
That's right.
those things are going to happen. Contingencies have got to be built into the plan for it to be a divine plan. Redundancies must be built into the system for it to be a divine plan. And
That's
so when we
right.
say a divine plan, it's part of the definition that there be redundancy and backup built into the system. Somebody's explaining something that we have heard before, and we don't know whether or not this is on camera yet, but they're talking about as the upward flow began to fall apart, and as the systems for Ground Zero Planet Earth really began to fall apart, that used to allow people to be able to hear their guardian angels. Somebody's crying. That as those systems began to fall apart, what started happening is that people were no longer doing what they had planned to do. They were not keeping their soul commitments either to each other or to spirit, and the connections began being missed more and more and more, and
That's
what used to
right.
be so many levels of backup that it was impossible to fall through the plan. There was just no way. There was level upon level upon level of backup. There was no way to fall through the plan.
That's right.
Became a plan with very little backup, and then a plan where every single connection had to work perfectly, and that was maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago.
That's right.
Every single connection had to work perfectly.
That's right.
And now there are gaps where something magical has to happen, like you have to be able to leap the Grand Canyon in a single leap and then continue on.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And that's when the instructions from the wisest minds above began to be to base a plan in reality.
That's
that we needed a
right.
plan that was based in reality.
That's
and
right.
didn't include these magical leaps where some intervention from outside the dimension was necessary in order to create the outcome.
That's right.
that's where we stand now, and unfortunately what we have are divinities who are still not yet willing to base their plans in reality. They have plans, but they're fantasy plans, and so now the guardian angels are here, and it's a whole chorus of them, really a lot of them, and making eye contact with kind of humanity, maybe.
That's what it feels like.
And saying what this means is that there isn't divine help coming right now, and there isn't a workable plan right now, and what needs to change is that humanity needs to stop bickering and arguing and fighting with each other and with reality, and needs to just start asking, how can I sacrifice for the greater good? What can I, every me, every us, every we, what can we do to pull this disaster out of the ditch? Because right now humanity is destroying all life on Earth, and it's happening rapidly. The Anthropocene extinction is well underway. And if we think this isn't going to destroy humanity's civilization, that doesn't even track with the intersections of science and history.
That's right.
And so we're arguing with physics, chemistry, history, psychology. We're arguing with science in an era where it's cool to quote science.
That's right.
So that doesn't even make sense. And so they're saying what we can each do is stop pretending that somebody else is going to solve our problems as a collective, and solve not only our own individual problems, but to solve the problems of the world. And JFK said it well, ask not what your country can do for you. And in this case, it would be ask not what life on Earth or humanity or the planet can do for you, but ask what together we can do for, and in this case, for life on Earth. And we've really got to focus on our environmental destruction, and to stop it. We need to stop the destruction. We've got to stop the destruction. We've got to stop it. What now? To stop the destruction in a fair and just way. And we see these rooms of angels and godly presences who are responsible for planet Earth, and it's fascinating because they're acting just like humans do.
That's
and they're
true.
saying, it's unreasonable to ask me to give up anything. Why, I must remodel my kitchen. Which is insane. You don't need to remodel your kitchen or your bathrooms.
No, that's true.
They work just fine. What has happened to our ingenuity? The microphone just switched. What has happened to our ingenuity? Have we become so useless that we cannot make do with a refrigerator that's here instead of there? That's demented. We did it for hundreds of thousands of years without an icebox.
That's right.
We've become a society of ingrates. The microphone just switched, and they're talking about multiple dimensions when they say that.
That's the point.
It's about ingrates in many dimensions.
That's right.
Who are just bickering and arguing, infighting ingrates in multiple dimensions. And to stop pretending that anybody else is going to solve the problems, and to start where we are, use what we have, do what we can, get into action to stop the destruction. To use whatever credibility we have in whatever circles we have to speak up on behalf of stopping the destruction. And also to take direct personal action to
That's what they're saying.
tend the soil ourselves, tend the planet ourselves, stop thinking that anybody is going to change anything, because they aren't.
No.
Plant fruit trees and build up soil wherever you are. Wherever you are.
Don't use pesticides.
Don't use pesticides. Make organic tiny farms. And you can do it in your backyard in suburbia, but the point is people are still going to want to eat. And as society comes apart, it's going to come apart in a not a pleasant way. It is not going to be pleasant. And that's unfortunate. And we can look at places where society is already coming apart. We could look at Myanmar.
That's right.
Or the Northern Triangle in Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador.
That's right.
And it's just complete disintegration of social rules, and it's just gang warfare, and the weak being trampled and the kind being trampled.
That's right.
And people pretending that because karma is delayed, it doesn't exist. For him is the message, and why do you ask? And the message is really for each of us, and to say, look, this isn't going to be pretty. This is going to be really ugly, because there isn't a good plan. There's no plan that is anything other than ugly. And that's unfortunate. That is based in reality. There are plans that are lovely, but they're fantasies.
That's true.
And they don't count as plans. That's a fantasy.
That's right.
That's fiction. And fiction can be dangerous when it's labeled as if it were not fiction.
That's right.
For him is the message. And why do you ask?
Someone in a much higher dimension room is dropping down a message about a play, a theatrical play written by Samuel Beckett called Waiting for Godot. And Waiting for Godot, the plot doesn't sound like a lot happens, because it's basically two men, and in the copyright law it's very specifically two men. Women are not allowed to play the characters. Beckett was really clear. It's two men waiting for Godot. And who Godot is never fully specified, nor do I think it is specified what's going to happen when Godot gets there. And these two men wait, and they bicker with each other about various and sundry things, waiting for this unseen character called Godot. This is probably Samuel Beckett's most famous play.
Interesting. So they're arguing about various and sundry things while they're waiting for Godot.
And they don't do anything productive.
Interesting.
If I remember correctly, what they argue about are little fussy things, like the shoes being too tight or the hat not fitting right.
That sounds like humanity.
Yeah.
And it sounds like some of the angels and godly presences, unfortunately.
That's right. That's true.
It has that same feeling of, well, this is draconian. We can't possibly be expected to give up certain things.
Exactly.
Interesting. How high up does this attitude go of waiting for God to solve the problems while we sit here bickering and arguing, rather than getting up and solving the problems? How high up does this attitude go? We know it's prevalent here. It's really fascinating. There are so many people who now it's fashionable to declare that there is no God.
That's right.
But they're still just bickering and arguing. They're not getting up and solving the problems. It doesn't seem to have solved the problem.
That's true.
To say there is no God.
God.
And they just continue bickering and arguing.
That's true.
It seems like our teacher used to say that people do what they want to do and look for reasons to support it. And if people want to bicker and argue, they're going to bicker and argue, and they'll find something to bicker and argue about. Why was it two men? I don't know.
I don't know.
So I think the point of having the two men there is that, like it or not, men do by and large have the power on planet Earth in human society, and therefore those to whom much is given, much is expected. That's where the responsibility also lies, and to step it up. And obviously this doesn't get women off the hook. Women also need to step it up. Both men and women need to step it up. All adults need to step it up. And in historical context, we would become adult at puberty.
That's right.
So anybody over the age of 13 really should step it up. And the Angels have historically said that the age of reason is actually closer to 8.
That's right.
8 years old is the average age of reason, at the point at which humans begin to make their own decisions.
That's right.
And that's really when we need to be stepping it up, from age 8 on. So if you're older than 8, we're significantly older than 8.
Oh yeah, a lot older than 8 over
We're
here.
almost 54 years older
That's
than 8.
right.
And so we need to step it up. All of us. Me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And I guess an interesting question is, when Godot comes, what is Godot going to do? Because our best guess, based on historical outcomes, is that Godot is going to take score and assign grades and hand out karma.
That's true.
That's what Godot's going to do. Godot's not going to solve the problem. Godot is going to fail everybody who didn't step up to solve the problem and cast them into a hell of their own making. Like, here's how it felt to all those people who you didn't help. And we've, in the dreaming, seen angels and godly presences responsible for planet Earth cast into the depths to experience what it's like for the suffering masses in the cellular levels and smaller.
That's true.
And they're trying to get out. They don't like it.